Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be going over how to use the of Dusk and Dawn talent, ability, whatever, in Dragonflight. This is a carryover from a Legendary and Shadowlands. So I've tried to hold off doing very specific things like this, but we are about to hit pre-patch. This ability hasn't been tuned very much, so it looks like it's going to go live pretty strong, which means it'll be something that you take. Dusk and Dawn by itself doesn't necessarily become super overpowered, but Seal of Order, kind of amplifies the effect of Dusk and Dawn, and so right now this is an extremely strong ability. If you, the likelihood actually is that you probably never used it in Shadowlands, so you might have no idea how it works exactly. So the tooltip says, when you reach 5 Holy Power, you gain Blessing of Dawn. When you reach 0 Holy Power, you gain Blessing of Dusk. Blessing of Dawn, damage and healing is increased by 10%, and Holy Power spending abilities deal 10% additional damage and healing for 15 seconds. And Dusk does damage taken is reduced by 4%, so 4% DR. Armor is increased by 10%, and your Holy Power generating abilities cool down 10% faster for 15 seconds. So they both are 15-second buffs. Now, when I read this tooltip, let's say I didn't know how this ability worked, I would think like I'm choosing between the two. If I go to 5 Holy Power, I get Blessing of Dawn, and if I spend down to 0, my Blessing of Dawn goes away, and I get Blessing of Dusk. It also isn't clear if this, stacks or if this refreshes or whatever, and that's important to know for this. The Seal of Order just amplifies it. So it amplifies the damage, and then it amplifies the armor and the Holy Power cooldown reduction or whatever. Holy Power generator cooldown reduction with Seal of Order. So for the purpose of this, I have the buffs kind of like in the middle of my screen. I can probably make them even larger here with edit mode. If I go to buffs, I'm sure I can scale this larger. Yeah, sure. All right, we'll save that. All right, so here's my buffs right in the middle of my screen. And when I get to 5 Holy Power, you're going to see me gain the 15-second buff. So let's just go here. Obviously, I'm gaining other buffs, and then there's 5. So there's Blessing of Dawn, so I have the increased damage. Now, I will go down to exactly 0, and now I also have Blessing of Dusk. Now you can see I still have Dawn. Now, I have refreshed my Dawn, and now I'm going to refresh my Dusk. So that's how it works. You can actually keep up both of these buffs all the time. At least at my current haste in Dragonflight beta, I'm at 20% haste right now. That might be with a buff on me or something. It's normally 19, but 20% haste. You can keep up both of these buffs on you indefinitely, essentially. So there could come a time where you're really starved or whatever, but essentially you can keep these up 100% of the time. Now, does that mean that you want to keep them up 100% of the time? Not necessarily, but that means I just wanted to point out that's how they work. You can constantly refresh both of them. You can constantly go up to 5, spend, use a 1 power, spend, go to 0, build to 5, spend. You can continue to do this over and over again. Now, when it comes to spenders, it's probably going to be a little bit inefficient. So what's going to matter, like when you run simulations and stuff like that, is having your spenders cooling down faster. So constantly having buttons to press, and honestly, I've talked about having some downtime. If you actually use the Blessing of Dusk, if you keep that up all the time, you don't really have that downtime. So is it better, the gameplay wise, if you can manage these buffs, it feels better to play with Blessing of Dusk, but will it be more damage? That's going to be the thing, because it's obviously going to be slightly more inefficient to be throwing in a Crusader Strike. Now, there is some benefits to Crusader Strike. So we have Aspiration of Divinity. Your Crusader Strike now also grants you 2% increased strength for 6 seconds. Multiple applications may overlap, so you get increased strength for using it. Obviously, you can also get an Imperium power from a Crusader Strike as well. So it's not all bad using Crusader Strike in Dragonflight, but it's still a very low damage ability, and you would weave that in to go from that 2 to 3 Holy Power to spend down to 0. So I don't know if it'll be, basically simulations will tell you, as a Paladin at least, which one will do more damage for you. As a tank or healer, it's probably going to be worth it just to kind of fluctuate between the two, on Prot and Holy, it'll probably be worth it just to fluctuate between and keep them both up all the time. Obviously, as a ret paladin, if you have to let one fall off, you want to let the DR fall off, the Dusk, and you want to keep up the damage buff all the time. That's by just continually build the 5 holy power, and you will continually have that buff, right? As long as you're not spending it 4 every time, you're going to continue to have Dawn and continue to have that damage increase. So that's for sure what you always want to have. And the only question is, do you want to maintain both of them all the time? Now, in other settings, it's also just good to have a 4% DR. This has been memed on a little bit in in Paladin circles or whatever, but it is 4% damage reduction, which isn't something small. You combine it with this, it's with Divine Protection. That's a 24% damage reduction. If obviously, if you can help it as a ret paladin, you don't want to take Devo Aura, but as Holy and Prot, you would have Devo Aura as well. So for yourself, you're providing 7, and Divine Protection, 27% DR on yourself, pretty actively. This is a cooldown, obviously, but the 7% is permanent, basically, if you have the Devo Aura on. Now, in a raid setting, I think Rogue has like a reduced boss damage thing that they can put on as well. And so you're talking at like a 10% DR if you have all these things up all the time. So that can be pretty cool too as far as survivability goes, right? So it could be very useful in that way. I'm very interested personally on what the simulations will end up saying on this. As this will be in when I do my 10.0 Ret Paladin guide for Dragonflight. It'll be interesting to see what the simulations say if we do want to go down for Dusk. Gameplay wise, like I said, it actually is very nice. You don't have any downtime really because your abilities are cooling down just fast enough that you always have something to press, it feels like. So will it be better to do that, or will it just be more damage to be super efficient with our holy power generators, ultra efficient, and always build up the 5 and spend, build the 5, spend, build the 5, spend, which is kind of like the way it's been for a very long time for Ret in most cases. So I'm very interested to see where that goes, to say the least. I kind of hope, honestly, it's the Dusk is the play there, and I'm keeping both active. One, it's just kind of interesting gameplay. If you play at a high end, you'll want to have like Weak Warriors probably showing you, the buffs are up, and you want to make sure they're both always up, right? Otherwise it's pretty easy though. You go 5, 5, spend 1, spend, build the 5, spend 1, and by 1 I mean you either using Judgment, Crusader Strike. On pure single target, Divine Toll will only give you 1 holy power. To refresh up to 5 though, it's really easy on multi-target. If you go from 0 to 5 with the Divine Toll, like in a Mythic Plus, instantly refreshes your 5 buff. Go back down to 0. And of course, you don't have to do it like literally like that because you have time. You have like globals to spare in between. You can actually spend it 4, build the 5, then go down to 0, and like you could get like an extra spender in that way, perhaps, right? You don't have to do that, but I'm just genuinely interested to see what the simulations end up saying on this. And if they do keep it this strong, which I'm kind of expecting them to at this point, it'll be kind of a unique gameplay thing that nobody really used in Shadowlands that much. So having these 2 active buffs to track isn't super great for people who don't like that. I don't love it myself, although I became pretty used to it with the set bonus and like having Seraphim proc and stuff like that. Having stuff to track isn't always the best, but this is actually a really easy one to do because frankly I think I could do it without Weak Auras at like a 95-99% effective rate, maybe even 100, but like a very high effective rate without a Weak Aura. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But yeah, this video is mostly just to kind of let you know how it works. The buffs do not stack, but they do refresh, and you can have both of them at a time. So you can have a constant damage, you can have a constant damage reduction, and you can have a constant generators, constant holy power generators being on with less CDR cooldown time. So those are the things that the talent and ability does, and as long as it stays this strong, we will be using it in Dragonflight, so be prepared to use that. That's it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out so much. Other than that, everybody, have a good one.